Alright, so this is going to be an explanation or an appendix video for the previous video I just made, talking about option selecting to cover your execution errors. But this is going to be more about like the fuzzy guarding stuff, because it seems like some people don't really understand what fuzzy guarding is, or like how it works, or I'm just going to explain what it is basically, and then I'm going to talk a bit about what I talked about in that video. So basically what fuzzy guarding is, right, is that for starters, we all understand that we can cancel our movement with any other movement command, right? So if I'm holding back like this, let me reset this so you can see the command history on the bottom. If I'm holding back and I slide to down back, I technically crouch there, right? And if you look at Kazuya, you can see him do it. You see? He crouched there. It might not look like a full crouch, but he did crouch, and he is crouching in that state. Like that. Like that. Like that. So, we can take this and we can use this to defend against mix-ups and strings in this game. So, at the top of the screen right now, you see Tekken bot, right? I don't want you to pay attention to anything on the right-hand side of Tekken bot. I just want you to look at the command. Don't even really pay attention to the command or the type. Just pay attention to the startup. That's all we're going to look at here. Everything else to the right of that, after ST in green at the top, forget about everything to the right of that. Let's just look at the ST part, right? So let me reset this, and I'm going to do, let me clear the Tekken bot, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Kazuya's down, forward, 1, 2. So you see at the bottom there's two inputs, down, forward, 1, and then down, forward, 1, 2. The first input is for down, forward, 1. So it starts up in 15 frames. The second input is down, forward, 1, 2, and that says it starts up in 20 frames. So the second hit of the string starts up in 20 frames. So far so good? Let me do it again. Let me clear it one more time. So you see there, it says ST for down, forward, 1, 15. Down, forward, 1, 2 is 20. Now I'm going to clear it, and I'm going to do down, forward, 1, 4. There we see. Down, forward, 1, startup is 15. Down, forward, 1, 4, startup is 16. So the second hit of down, forward, 1, 4, the 4, is 16 frame startup. Which means that the high, or down, forward, 1, 4, comes out faster than the mid. It comes out 4 frames faster, right? So because we know that, we can use that to our advantage to defend against this string. How do we do it? Well, because the high comes out faster, we want to duck and then stand up to block the mid. So the way the character is going to look like this. Pay attention to the Kazuya on the left. It's going to look like that, right? And if you look at my command history, you see I input down back and then I slid right back up to back, right? So I'm going to record the dummy Kazuya doing this to me, and I'm going to do it on 2 separate slots, so it's truly random, and I'm going to try to not mess this up. It can be pretty difficult. There's only a 4 frame gap, so it's, you know, you might fuck this up online or something. So down, forward, 1, 2. Down, forward, 1, 4. Right? So now, forget about the Tekken bot at the top. You don't have to look at that anymore. Just pay attention to what's going on the screen. So they're both set to 100. Interval between action is set to short. And now I'm going to just defend against it. So there I ducked it, I ducked it, I blocked it, I can punish it. I ducked it, I fucked up. I ducked it, I blocked it, blocked it, blocked it. And you look at my inputs on the bottom right, they're always back, down, back, back. So what I'm doing is I'm ducking within that 4 frame window before the mid would hit me, so I can avoid the high attack in the string. And then I'm standing back up just in time to block the mid. So now I'm going to switch characters. I'm going to go to Brian because he also has strings that you can do this to. Alright, so here we are with everybody's favorite maniac, Brian Fury. And I'm going to clear the Tekken bot input at the top. So now let's look up there again, and let's look at the startup. I'm going to do 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 4. Okay, and we're going to go step by step and look at each string individually, and we're going to see what's going on here. So 1, 2, 1, right? This is why I said don't pay attention to the command, because this says 1, 2, 2. There's no 1, 2, 2 for Brian. What the hell is that? So anyways, the 1 at the very top is the first hit of the string. The 1, 2, 2 is the second hit of the string, and the 1, 2, 2, 1 is the third hit of the string. So first and foremost, before we even tackle this issue or this concept, we all understand what jailing is, right? So what jailing is if I set the dummy Brian to crouch, right, he's going to block and then duck. If I do 1, 2, 1, 2 jails, so he cannot duck. He can only duck after he's exited block stun. So let's just demonstrate, right? But if I do something else like quarter circle back 2, 4, he can duck in between the string and obviously launch me, right? So this string does not jail, but this string does, right? So let me clear it again. Stop ducking. Okay, let me change this. So because the first 2 hits of the string jail, the third hit does not jail. So he can duck, crouch, he can press a button and get counter hit, whatever, right? Everybody's gotten counter hit juggled by 1, 2, 1 at some point if you fought Brian. So let's go back to 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. I forgot my own character's moves. Alright, there we go. It's on Tekken bot now. So let's look at the third hit there, right? It says 19. So the third hit starts up in 19 frames. Now I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Remember, 1, 2, 1 is a mid-ender. Actually, let me turn that on. So 1, 2, 1 again. High, high, mid, right? And we said the third hit starts up in 19 frames. Now I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, which is a low ender. And if you look at the third hit there on Tekken bot, it says 24 frames. So the mid starts up in 19 frames, it's I-19. The low starts up in 24 frames. So that means there's a 5-frame difference there, right? Between the mid and the low. Which means that the mid is going to hit us before the low would hit us. Okay? And we're also going to do 1, 2, 4. The third hit of that is 25 frames. So the high would hit us after the low, and then the mid would hit us before any of the other ones. So the order of blocking that you would need to do is block the mid, duck the low, or block the low, and then duck the high. Now thankfully, because the low and the high string, it's a low and a high. If I duck and I block the low, I'm also ducking the high, right? So I can effectively fuzzy guard all 3 variations of this string. So I can fuzzy guard 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 4. So I'm going to show that right now. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some caveats here. So 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. Alright, let's try and do this and not mess it up. Nah, I fucked up. So, you see I'm defending against all of this, right? But if you look at my inputs, they always have that down back input there, right? And sometimes when I input the down back, it's on the same... I'm inputting down back at the same time that the mid is coming out, but because it takes a frame to go into crouch, I'm technically still blocking the mid. I hope that makes sense. So because the mid would hit first, I would stand longer to block the mid, and then duck to block the low because it hits me on the 24 frames, and you know, obviously I'm also ducking the high because it hits on it starts up in 25 frames. So that's all fuzzy guarding is. Now some things you cannot fuzzy guard because they would hit on the exact same frame. Now I don't know if Brian has this, but he does have something similar to this. There are also strings in this game that you can delay, right? So for Brian, let me change this so that he blocks. For Brian, he has 1, 2, 1, right? But he also can delay the third hit of that string. Like that. Like that. Right? I can do it fast, or I can delay it. Now it's worth noting, I can't delay the other ones. Right? I can only delay the mid. So what this means is that even though like if somebody's just picking up the character, right, and they look at the move list and they're like, oh, what moves does Brian have? He has 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. Okay, these are the only 3 versions of this move he has, or these are the only 3 variations that he has. They're just gonna go in and do this, you know, and do this, or maybe you're gonna try to defend against this and think that you're good to go, right? You've got the fuzzy guarding down. The problem though is that because he can delay the mid, if the Brian player delays the one like that, the 1, 2, 1 at the end like that, you can't fuzzy guard it, because the timing for which you would want to be ducking is when the mid would hit you. So that's the fucked up thing about this string. So even though technically speaking, if you look at the move list and you see these 3, right, there's nothing here that says you can delay this string. So you probably wouldn't know that unless somebody told you, or unless you've played Tekken before or whatever, right? You're gonna go in thinking like, okay, I can fuzzy guard all of this, but in reality, I guess technically speaking, you can't because of the delayable string. And this is the same thing for other strings like Fang's down back 1, 4 and down back 1, 2. It's a mid-high variation. So technically speaking, I believe you would be able to duck and block both of the strings, but because he can delay the strings, he can delay both of them, he can change up the timings on them, and that can throw off your timing for fuzzy guarding. So that's a little bit harder to do. Also, let me go back to Kazuya really quickly. Alright, so we've brought back our 2 friends here, and I want to show something else here where you can't fuzzy guard. Technically speaking, you cannot fuzzy guard this. I'm going to record Kazuya doing forward, forward 3. And then I'm going to record him doing hell sweep. Right. I don't need the full hell sweep, I just want to show that. Alright, so let's look at Tekken bot, right? And let me clear it. Okay. So he's going to do forward, forward 3. I'm going to have him do it once and then I'm going to stop it. That's not what I want to do. Okay, let's do this one more time. Why does it say 1? Alright, well, whatever. You can clearly see that the last input on the Tekken bot app is not a 1 jab because it says start up 20. That's the forward, forward 3. So forward, forward 3 starts up in 20 frames. Right? Now let's look at hell sweep. It starts up in 16 frames, right? This is the typical mix-up for Kazuya. Forward, forward 3 or hell sweep. Right? And he's doing it out of a wave dash, so you don't necessarily know when it's going to come. So if you were to, instead of sidewalking to the left against that, if you wanted to just, you know, stand there and block it, the way you would do it is you would duck and then stand up, because the forward, forward 3 is going to hit you after the hell sweep, assuming that they input both of them on the same frame. The fucked up thing about Kazuya though is that he doesn't have to use forward, forward 3, right? If he's really dope, he can do that. Stop moving. Okay. You can do that. Let me do this one more time. Let me clear Tekken bot. Right, you can do that. Right, and if you look at the last input on Tekken bot, it says while standing 2, 16 frames. And he can do that out of a wave dash. So now, instead of dealing with forward, forward 3 hell sweep as the mix-up, right? You have to deal with while standing 2 hell sweep as the mix-up. You can't fuzzy guard that, because while standing 2 while standing 2 starts up in 16 frames, and hell sweep starts up in 16 frames. You can't be standing and blocking at the standing and crouching at the same time, right? It's impossible. You can't be in 2 places at once. That's standard like reality shit, right? And the other thing is that if you want to try to sidestep, like sidewalk the mix-up, the forward, forward 3 hell sweep mix-up, well, while standing 2 tracks, right? It's a homing move. So that's part of the reason, I imagine, from a design perspective, that this move is minus 18 on block. Because if this move was not minus 18 on block, that mix-up would be super cheap. Aside from the fact that it's, you know, it leads to a combo and all of that, it's a homing mid that comes out of his wave dash, which is effectively a mix-up to throw you off of the hell sweep or to throw you off of the forward, forward 3. It cannot be sidewalked, it cannot be sidestepped. It's that good. Now the issue with it is obviously that, like I said, you have to be pretty good to be able to pull that off out of a wave dash. Just wave dash, wave dash, wave dash into instant while standing 2. Right? If you guys watched last year, one of the Tekken events in Peru, there was a Kazuya player named Sergey Master. At the end of the round, I believe it was against Dimeback, he ended up doing that to him and it threw him off, and he nailed him with the while standing 2 out of a wave dash.
He has a good chance here. we gonna see it? The blue stuff. Oh, never mind. Never mind.
So that's the use for that. You can't fuzzy guard that. You just got to take the mix-up and hope that you guess right. Because if you don't, you're going to die. Now, the thing is that obviously if Kazuya does a hell sweep and you block it, he's dead. If he does a while standing 2 and you block it, he's also dead. So that's the drawback to it. But anyways, that's basically the gist of fuzzy guarding. Just because I do strings, right? Just because I'm doing these strings, it doesn't mean that all of the extensions come out on the same frame, right? 1, 2, 1, the ender comes out on starts up in 19 frames. 1, 2, 3, the ender starts up in 24 frames. 1, 2, 4, the ender starts up in 25 frames. And that's why we can fuzzy guard these strings. So my suggestion to you is, if you're playing on PC, is to go into training mode, look at characters that are mixing you up with strings and stuff, and you're like, how do I deal with this? How do I block this? Look at this and see, is there a gap, or is there a difference in the startup of the extensions that I can fuzzy guard? Can I potentially sidestep fuzzy guard? Which is why when you watch players, like really good players, like tournament players, you'll see their movement and they're doing this. Now look at my inputs on the bottom right. I'm doing sidestep left, block, down back to crouch block, and then standing back up to stand block, right? What I'm doing here is I'm sidestepping a linear attack, I'm blocking a tracking move, I'm ducking to block a low that might track me, and I'm standing back up to block another attack. So that's a defensive option select. This is what you would use to like blow up standard Mishima stuff, right? So like, for example, I made a video on the movement and delaying your timings, right? I showed this with Heihachi, where if Heihachi does forward 4 and then he tries to mix you up with something like down back 2, hell sweep, electric, down forward 2, you can avoid all of that by doing what I just did. Now, the timing can be pretty strict, and obviously if the opponent's delaying their timing, it's going to throw off your fuzzy guard, which is the importance of doing things like dash guarding in people's faces, so they can't just option select everything and sidestep everything, and you know, they get a read on your timing because you're just mashing buttons. That's why you need to delay your timings, because if not, if you play against a good player who's solidly defensive, like Ursula Nash, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. Nothing's going to hit them, and you're going to be sitting there wondering, like, is this guy cheating or something? So that's the basic premise of fuzzy guarding. That's what I wanted to make the video about, except not really. That seemed to be a big issue that people were having when it came to understanding what I was talking about. So now that I've talked about that, I just want to talk about the option select to cover your punishes, right? So, like I said, right, I'm going to have him do down forward 1, 2 again. And then I'm going to have him do down forward 1, 4. So, down forward 1, 2, like I said, I can fuzzy guard both of these mix-ups, right? But because I have to be very, very specific in my timing of how I do the fuzzy guard, there's a chance that I might come back up to stand block after I'm out of the window of while standing, after I'm out of this state, where I can get the while standing one to launch punish the high. So because that potential exists, what I should do, I would think at least, is a good idea to start doing with, you know, depending on the character that you play, if they have this option, is to input another punish at the same time. So Brian has while standing 1, and if he's in a standing state, he has 1, 4, right? So if I duck the high, I don't want to just input while standing 1. I want to input while standing 1, 4, because if I do this, right, if I duck really fast and I'm out of the while standing state, like, let's see, like that. You see how Brian's, I'm not getting the timing right because it's, you got to be real like strict about it. You see, I'm gonna duck the high there, but I'm not gonna get the while standing 1. So I want to maximize my damage, right? I want to maximize my offensive potential, whether that be damage, whether that be frame advantage, whether that be a knockdown, a wall splat, what have you. I want to cover both options. So if I duck long enough and I get the while standing 1, I still input the 4, but it doesn't matter because if I input 4 during while standing 1, nothing comes out. And that gives me time to see, okay, I launched this idiot, let me follow up with my combo. If I duck too fast and I don't get the while standing 1, I at the very least get 21 damage instead of getting 7 damage as a punish. This is more important with the Jin example because if I do this with Jin, I'm going between a while standing 2, which is a launcher, or standing up way too fast and only getting a 2. Right, only getting a 2 jab. But if I do the option select, then I'm still getting the while standing 2 potential if I duck for long enough to actually get the while standing 2. But if I don't duck long enough, then when I come back up and I input it, I'm going to get 2-4, which is going to lead to 29 damage, I think it was, plus a knockdown, and if they're at the wall, it's going to wall splat them, which is significantly better than just jabbing them in the face because your timing was messed up. Right? You don't have a lot of frames to work with here. We literally have, like, what was it, 4 or 5 frames, something like that, to duck and stand back up. So if your timing is off, you're going to mess it up. But if you do mess it up and you don't get the launch punish, the wall standing launch, at the very least, you're going to maximize your damage, maximize your Oki potential, your wall splats, all of that stuff, right? So that was the basic premise of all of that, of the first like section of that video. I hope that clears things up for you. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, and you know, I don't have any problems with explaining stuff if they need to be explained a little bit better. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching.